Hello and welcome to another pattern tutorial. I am here to show you how to make this nice and easy breezy Dreamweaver tank top. This is a very lightweight fabric mesh tank, which is perfect for your warm weather months, and especially if you celebrate Pride during June when it's nice and warm, and a good mesh tank top never hurts to have on hand. So to get started on it, you're going to need some supplies. So I have here some Aunt Lydia's Fashion 3 crochet thread. This is a category 1 super fine fingering weight yarn. This is a 100% cotton yarn. I used a black version of this to make my friend's cropped version of this tank top, and that came out really, really nicely. And the reason I'm using this one is because the one that I will be featuring later in the video and the one that I used to make my original is a discontinued yarn. It is Barocco Mykonos Stone Wash. So I wanted to create a version that used one that is readily available. This one you can get at any Michaels. You can purchase them in store or online. We also need to pick out a hook. So I have two hook options here. I've got a size F, which is a 3.75 millimeter, as well as a size E, which is a 3.5 millimeter. Really, any hook will work as long as you can match gauge. During testing, we found that because of the mesh being just such a flexible fabric, meeting gauge was more important than trying to match the hook size. So the goal of the gauge is to try to get these chain spaces here in these treble crochet rows to equal roughly 3 spaces per inch. So if you can get about 3 of them within the space of an inch, then you've matched gauge well enough that you can be able to create the right size for your tank top. The other supplies you'll need are pretty standard for making garments. You're going to need a measuring tape to be able to measure yourself as well as the garment pieces to make sure you're getting the right size. Some scissors for cutting your thread. You'll also need some yarn needles, which I do not have out, but you know, those are always good to have on hand to seam up your panels as well as weave in your yarn ends. And then I have some optional stitch markers here. These are if you need help with marking the first and last stitches of the rows. So sometimes, especially if you're a beginner crocheter or like an adventurous beginner, you might drop those last or first stitches. So these are usually helpful for marking those. They're also good when you get to the armhole shaping and the strap shaping. There's going to be some decreasing. So sometimes using these to mark where your decrease points are can be helpful as well. Another tool or another way that you can use these is when you are seaming up or trying on the panels before you actually seam. You can use stitch markers to attach the panels in different points, so that way it looks like how it's going to look when it is seamed, and that way you can also keep them lined up. The other thing that's not shown here is optional as well. You can use some blocking pins and blocking mats if you would like to block your tank top. I found that I didn't really need to block it with any blocking pins. I just washed them and then laid them flat to dry and then kind of hand shaped them into place, and it seemed to work. But you might discover that you would prefer to wet block it and use blocking pins and blocking mats. So I wanted to mention them here. So now that we have our supplies, you have your gauge information, and hopefully you have a copy of the pattern that you can get from my website or my Ravelry. If you would like to find that pattern, you can check out the links below in the description box. But now that I'm done talking about that, it is time for us to get started. So let's get working on our front panel. To start our Dreamweaver tank top, we're going to begin with a slip knot. And then we'll place that on our hook. And then you're going to chain the number of chains needed for your size, or if you want to make any kind of adjustments, what you're going to do is chain a multiple of 2. So 2 times however many chain spaces you want across, plus 2. Okay, I've worked up a little sample chain here. Obviously, this is not the same width as my panel if I were to do it for my real body, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just doing a small sample just to demonstrate the techniques. So what you're going to do is once you chain, you're then going to work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So we've got this first chain is kind of really small and tight there. And then there's that second chain from our hook. So we'll work a single crochet into that one. To do that, you'll insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you repeat that into the next chain. So we're going to do a single crochet into that next chain. After that, we are then going to begin our repeat pattern. So for this foundation row, it can be a little bit fiddly, but just go slowly and it should work out just fine. So what you're going to do is chain 1, and then you're going to skip the next chain, leave it unworked, and then you're going to work a single crochet into your next chain right here. And then you just repeat that across until you have 2 stitches left. So chain 1, skip this next chain, single crochet into that next one, and then keep repeating that. Okay, and notice that now if I skip this next chain, then I would have my 2 chains left for the end. So I'm going to work 2 single crochets, 1 in each of those chains, to match what I did on the beginning where there were 2 single crochets here. Once you do that, you are then done with your foundation row. Once you have your foundation chain, we are now ready to begin working our established stitch pattern. Now the established stitch pattern is going to be a 4-row repeat. So for the first row of our established stitch pattern, we're going to be working a row of treble crochets and chain 1 spaces. To get it started, we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what this does is it acts like a treble crochet plus a chain 1 to create that first chain space. And when we turn our work, we can see that we've got this single crochet that we ended with. Then this next single crochet, that's going to be the one that we're going to skip. And then we're going to work in this chain space that's right here. And we're going to do a treble crochet into that chain space. So I'm going to treble by doing 2 yarn overs around my hook. Then insert my hook into that chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I'll now have 4 loops on my hook here if they don't fall off. So then I'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So those 3 yarn over and pull throughs makes this a triple or treble crochet. Once I do that, I will then chain 1, skip this next single crochet, find the next chain 1 space here, and that's going to be where I work my next treble crochet. Yarn over twice, insert into that chain space, pull up my loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then I'll just keep repeating that across to create this first row of my established stitch pattern. Now, I'm going to pause a moment because when you're just looking at it, you're kind of like, wait, which ones are the single crochets and which ones are the chain spaces? And so it sometimes can be a bit difficult to tell where you need to insert your hook. But what you can do is look for a couple of key things. One is that the single crochets are going to have these 2 little legs right here next to my thumbnails, and they're both going to form kind of a V. They're not quite all the way closed to a V, but if you kind of squeeze them together, they'll come out of that same chain here on the bottom. And so that tells you that this V is a single crochet. So you're not going to work anything into these V's. That's your singles. So if you find your next single, which is right here, it's these 2 legs, these 2 vertical bars here coming out of this chain. So that means that in between has to be that chain space. And if you can see here, it looks like, okay, well, what about these? Aren't those legs? Well, no, because this one is going through this chain on the right, and then this one is going through this chain on the left. So if they're split like that, that means that they're not part of the same stitch. So then if I kind of grab this bottom chain here and this top here and kind of pull them apart, we can see, okay, there's that space right here. There's our space there. Okay. So that's kind of how you can tell. It is a little finicky, and if you just go slowly and look each time for them, I still have to do this, and I've been crocheting for like, 2+ decades. And so this still even gives me a struggle. So I just keep looking very slowly for, hey, there's that V, there's that V. It must be in between here. You can also help yourself by looking for this unworked chain. So this chain down here didn't have anything worked into it. So that means that it has to be the chain space that's above it. So if you see a chain and you're like, oh, that has something coming out of it, then that's not a space. This one doesn't have anything that's coming out of it there. So it's a chain space there. So anyway, that's how you can kind of help yourself locate those chain one spaces when you work this treble crochet row. So I'm going to finish that up, and then we'll talk about how to do the second row in our repeat pattern. All right. Once you reach the end of this row, when you skip this next to last single crochet, the final stitch is actually that first single crochet we created. So you're going to make your last treble crochet in that single crochet. So we're going to yarn over twice, go into that single crochet, pull up our loop, pull through two, pull through two, pull through two. And now our first row of treble crochets and chain spaces is complete. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chain spaces here. And now we're ready to work the next row, which is going to be a row of double crochets and chain spaces. So we're just going to the next stitch that's shorter than the one before. So to do that, we're going to start by working a chain 3. We're going to turn our work here. And this chain 3 is going to act like our first double crochet. So it's coming out of this first treble crochet here. So it counts for this first stitch. And so then in the next chain space here, we're going to do a double crochet again. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop. We'll then have 3 loops on our hook. So then we yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Once we do that, we will then proceed to work similarly to how we did here. We're just going to chain 1, skip this treble crochet here, and in the next space, we'll work a double crochet. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then just keep repeating that until we get towards the end. Okay. And then in this very last space, we're going to mimic what we did on the beginning here, where there were 2 double crochets next to each other, if you count that chain 3. And we're going to 2 double crochet into that space. So I'll work 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets into that chain space. And then that creates our second row repeat. So it looks very similar to the first one, but it's slightly shorter because we used slightly shorter stitches. We're now ready to begin our third row of the repeat, and that is going to be a row now of half double crochets and chain spaces. So again, we're going to the next stitch down in height. So to do this, what we're going to do is work a chain 3 to start at the beginning and turn our work, of course. And what this chain 3 will do is it counts as a half double crochet plus a chain 1 to create that first space. So it's coming out of this first double crochet. And because it's a chain 1, we're going to skip this next double crochet here. And working in this first chain space, we're going to work a half double crochet. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop. We'll then have 3 loops on our hook. So then we just yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops at one time. And then, I'm sure you could probably guess, we're going to do a chain 1, skip this double crochet, and then work a half double crochet in this last, or in this next space. So we'll just then do that all the way across, working a chain one, skip one, half double crochet. Then when we get to these last two double crochets, because remember the chain three from the previous row counted as a double crochet, what I find easiest is instead of trying to work into that chain, I just go ahead and work my last half double crochet into that little gap in between the two stitches, and it looks just fine. It's a mesh tank top, and it's going to be, the seaming is going to kind of hide that anyway, so it's not like it's going to make that huge of a difference. And there we have our third row repeat. So again, much shorter than the ones before because it just keeps getting shorter as we use shorter stitches. The fourth and final row of our established stitch pattern is going to be single crochets with chain spaces, just like what we did on this foundation row. And so that kind of like, repeats this cycle for us. So to do that, we're going to chain one and turn. And this chain one isn't going to count for anything. It's just to give us that turning chain because single crochets are just really short. But what we're going to do is in this very first stitch, we're going to work a single crochet. So this first half double crochet, I'm going to work a single. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. I'll now have two loops on my hook. I'll yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Single crochet is complete. Then I have this chain space. So just like with the very first foundation row and with the double crochets, we're going to be putting two singles right next to each other. So we're going to put our second single crochet into that chain space. And now we're ready to begin working that repeat pattern of doing our chain one, skip the next stitch, and then work into that space. So single, chain one, skip one, work into the next space, and just keep doing that until you get to the last chain space. Okay. Once we reach this last chain space, it's going to be very similar to how we did the double crochets. We're not going to work into the actual chain. We're just going to place two single crochets into this chain space. So one single crochet and then two single crochets. And we have now finished the fourth and final row of our established stitch pattern. Once you do that, you will then just repeat these 4 rows as many times as it says in your pattern for your size, or as many times as you want to reach the length of the tank top from your underarm to where you want it to sit, like on your waist, or if you want it to be a crop top, you can make it shorter, however many you want to do. But I definitely recommend doing whole repeats of this. I would not stop in the middle of this stitch pattern because then the instructions for the armhole shaping and neck shaping can get pretty confusing with making sure you're keeping this pattern. So definitely, if you do make any adjustments to the length, adjust it by units of these 4 repeat stitches or repeat rows. With that, I'm going to leave you to go work up my own body, and I will meet back with you to talk to you about armhole shaping. Alrighty, I've been working away at my mesh pattern here. As you can see, it's nice and, flexible and everything like that. This yarn is actually not a very flexible yarn, but the pattern itself just adds that flexibility no matter what kind of yarn you use. It's just, ooh, just love it. Okay, anyway, enough fondling of my tank top here. It's time for us to talk about armhole shaping. So once you reach the length of the body that you want to reach your underarms, then you're going to begin the armhole shaping. So the instructions are going to be the same for all the sizes, but the number of times you do the instructions is going to be what's different for each size to get that inward decreasing here on the sides to get your armhole shaping done. So to do them, you're going to be doing a decrease on each side. First is the treble crochet decrease. So to do this, what we're going to do is we are going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And this chain is not going to count for anything. It is not a it's not a chain space. It's not a stitch. It's nothing. It's just to basically create a smooth border around our armholes. So the actual first stitch that we're going to count is going to be in this next chain space. So that's going to be our treble crochet in this chain space. So we're going to yarn over twice, insert into that space, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're like, that doesn't really look like a difference in how we did before. But again, because we don't count this as a stitch, we've actually skipped these first 2 stitches here, and we've now moved inward to just this chain space. So our first chain space is actually going to be the one we're about to make when we do a chain 1, skip 1, and then treble crochet into the next one. This is where it might be helpful to go ahead and mark this as our very first stitch. So this chain space here is our first chain space. So we can use our stitch marker so we remember, hey, this doesn't count as anything. So that's not our space. Once you do that, you're then going to chain 1, skip 1, and just keep working treble crochets across until you reach that very last chain space. All right, I'm reaching here towards the end. And what I'm going to do is work the final treble crochet into that last chain space before these last 2 single crochets here. Then in my very last single crochet, I'm going to work a double crochet. So yarn over, insert into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And this mimics that chain 3 that was at the very beginning here. And just like that chain 3, this double crochet does not count as a stitch or a space or anything. It's literally just to create a smooth transition so that we don't have these big zigzaggy gaps in our armhole shaping. So once we do that, that's our treble crochet decrease. We're now going to do our double crochet decrease. So to do that, we're going to turn our work and we're going to do a chain 2, which just like the row before, this chain 2 does not count as a stitch or a space or anything. So skipping this treble crochet here, this chain space, we're going to then work a double crochet into this next treble crochet. So into this next treble crochet, I'm going to double crochet. So yarn over, insert into it, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then in the next chain space, I'm going to yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, all that stuff, create my 2 double crochets here at the beginning. So normally those 2 double crochets would have been over here, but because we're skipping these first couple of this stitch in space, we've actually decreased the amount of spaces here. And so now we've got that diagonal starting to happen for our armhole shaping. Once I've established that, I can then continue with my normal repeat pattern of chain 1, skip 1, double crochet all the way across until I reach the last 2 chain spaces. And remember, that last chain space is not going to be that chain 3 that we've got at the end. So make sure, oh, speaking of, sorry, forgot, probably should go ahead and take my other stitch marker. We can go ahead and mark our first stitch of this row so that we know that that double crochet is the first stitch, not this chain right here. All right, now with that, I'm going to continue and I'll show you what to do when you get to the end of this row. All right, I'm coming towards the end here. I can see that my stitch marker here is marking that actual last space, so not this one right here. So I'm going to work until I have those 2 spaces left. So I'm basically 1 more here. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to now chain 1, skip 1, And in this second to last space here, I'm going to work 2 double crochets. Then skipping this next stitch, this chain space, and then going into this very last treble crochet, I'm going to work a half double crochet. So we're just doing 1 stitch less, 1 stitch shorter in this last, you can do the space or you can do the actual stitch. It really doesn't matter. Again, it's gonna all look good in the end, but I go ahead and do it just in that last one. And then that creates that decrease line again. Now that I've done that, I'm now ready to begin. Oh, and sorry, remember that this half double crochet won't count for a stitch at all. It's just there to kind of line things up. The last stitch was actually this last double crochet we made. So now that we've done that, we're ready to do our half double crochet decrease row. So to do that, we're going to chain 1, turn our work. Okay. Oof. This yarn is so slippery, it just slips right off. Okay, there we go. So now I've chained 1 and turned. And if we look here, we can see that we've got the 2 double crochets and then our next chain space. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip these 2 double crochets and we're going to work in that first chain space a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, or all 3. Then we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and half double crochet. And just like before, this chain 1 at the beginning does not count as a space or a stitch. So my very first stitch is actually this half double crochet that I created in this first chain space here. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark that. And then I can continue working in pattern those half double crochets, chain 1, skip 1s all the way across until I reach the very last chain space. Okay, I'm coming now towards the end here. And we're going to see that we have, oh, sorry, got some loose yarn there. Okay, so we've got these last 2 double crochets and then this chain space here. So I'm going to work my half double crochet into that next chain space. And then that's going to be my last half double crochet of my row. Then in this last double crochet, I'm going to work a single crochet, which again does not count as a stitch. It's just there to keep things smooth. And that's how you end your half double crochet decrease row. Once you do that, we're ready to begin the single crochet decrease row. So to do that, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work here. Okay. Then once we do that, this chain 1 again does not count as anything. We're going to note where we have our last half double crochet that we did in the previous row. We're going to skip that chain space, and then in the next half double crochet, we're going to work a single crochet. And then in the next chain space, we're going to work a single crochet. Then we're ready to work our repeat pattern of chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the space. And we're just going to do that all the way across until we get to the very end, and I'll show you what to do at the end there. Okay, coming to the end where I will have 2 spaces remaining. Okay, so we've got our last stitch of the row marked here. So that means that these are our last 2 chain spaces here. So in this second to last space, I'm going to work 2 single crochets. Then in that very last stitch, that last half double crochet from the previous row, I'm going to work a loose slip stitch. Now, I don't want it to be too tight because then it's going to kind of cinch this in a little too much and cause some puckering. but I do want to continue that pattern of doing one less. And the only stitch smaller than a single crochet is a slip stitch. So that's just gonna give it that slightly angled, slightly tighter look. So once I do that loose slip stitch there, I now have done all the repeats that I need to be able to decrease to create my armhole shaping. So what you're going to do is then follow along with your pattern for your size and repeat this as many times as it says to get that armhole shaping. Then, depending on your size, you may need a few more rows without any armhole shaping decreases just to get it up to that neck level. For the front panel, it's going to be, lower, and then the back panel it's going to be higher. But in either case, you're going to work a certain number of repeat rows without any decrease after you do your armhole shaping. Once you do that, we will then meet back up and I will talk to you about how to do the shoulder straps. Once you're finished making the armhole shaping, it is now time to work the shoulder straps. So the shoulder straps for the front and back panel are going to be different heights, but the beginnings of them are going to be worked basically exactly the same. The only difference is just how many more you do after you do the decreasing that's going to happen around the neckline. So the first shoulder strap is just going to be a continuation from the previous rows of the armhole shaping. To do this, your pattern is going to tell you to chain a certain amount. So it's going to be 5 because we're going to be starting with our treble crochet row. And then we're no longer decreasing along the armhole side. So it's just going to be a normal working. So we've got our 2 single crochets here. So I'm going to skip this next one, work a treble into this next chain space. And then I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and we're going to do that for a certain number of repeats depending on your size. It's not going to be very many because the shoulder straps are very narrow. So in this case, I'm just going to do it a few times here. Okay. Then once you do that, you're going to chain 1, skip 1, and it's going to tell you to work a final treble crochet in the next chain space. Then, skipping the next chain space, you're going to work a double crochet into the stitch after that. This is going to be very similar to how the armhole shaping was done, but this time we're doing decreases on the neckline of our tank top here. So on the inside of the panel is going to be where the decreasing happens. So it's just going to be a one-sided decrease. The other side is not going to get any decreases. It's just going to go straight up. So once you do the treble crochet side, just like with the armhole shaping, this double crochet does not count as a stitch. It's just there to give a smooth border around our neckline here. So I'm going to turn my work. And then we're going to skip this first stitch and this space, and we're going to begin working in that second treble crochet. We're going to work our double crochet. Oh, sorry, I'm going to chain 2. I forgot about that part. Then we're going to do a double crochet into this second treble crochet here. So we're skipping this first one and that chain space. Then we're going to work another double crochet into this next chain space. So we'll have 2 double crochets right next to each other. Then we'll continue working our established stitch pattern of chain 1, skip 1, work double crochets until we get to that last space. And in that last space, we'll do like we've been doing before, where we'll just work 2 double crochets. And that's now decreased our strap by another chain space here. Once I do that, I'm going to chain 3 and turn. And then we're going to work half double crochets in each chain space, chain 1, skip 1. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into this next chain space, create my half double crochet. Then I'm going to work chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet. And then I'm going to do that until I am to this last space here, which was very fast for me. So we're going to just work a half double crochet into this last chain space. Then skipping this next double crochet and working into this last double crochet, I'm going to work a single crochet into this final double crochet, which again will not count as a stitch. It's just there to form our border around the neckline. Then we'll do one more row of decreasing with single crochet. So in this case, we're going to chain one. Make sure to turn our work. And because this single crochet did not count as a stitch, we're going to count this first one as one, and then we're going to skip this next chain or this next space. And then in this next half double crochet, so our second half double crochet, we're going to work a single crochet, then work a single crochet into the next space, and then we'll do our chain one, skip one all the way across. In this case, I'm basically already to the end. So I'm going to chain one, skip one, and then work 2 single crochets into that last space. Once you complete that last single crochet row of decreasing, for all the sizes, that is the end of the neckline decreasing. So after that, you're then going to continue working in pattern with the established number of spaces that you now have on this strap for the number of rows needed for your size. And depending on which panel you're on, the front panel, you're going to have a longer strap here. For the back panel, it's just going to end here because you're just going to have this little shallow neckline on the back. So once you do that, it is then time to fasten off, and then we will begin working the second strap. To begin working the second strap, we're going to have the right side of our work facing us. So because I'm right-handed, that means that the second strap is going to be on the left side. If you're left-handed, it's going to be flipped and you'll be counting in from the right. But in either case, you're going to be counting in a certain number of chain spaces, depending on your size. And then in the stitch right next to that is where you're going to join your yarn to your work. Now that I've joined my yarn, I go ahead and do the chain. So in this case, it's going to be a chain 3 because we're on the side of the neckline. We're going to start the decreasing at the beginning of each row instead of at the end like we did with the strap on the other side. So I'm going to chain 3. And then we're going to skip this first space, skip the next stitch, and in the next space, we're going to work our first treble crochet. So we're going to yarn over twice, go into that space, pull up a loop, pull up through 2, 2, 2. And then continue to work in pattern by chaining 1, skipping 1, working in that next space, all the way across to the end. Okay, so work into my last single crochet here. And there we go. Now we're going to turn. And we're going to chain 3 because it's now time to work our double crochet 1. That chain 3 counts as our first stitch. So in this next space, I'll work another double crochet. So that will be 2 double crochets next to each other. Then chain 1, skip 1, work a double crochet into that next space. And then just keep doing that across until you are to the second to last space, which remember this chain 3 at the beginning does not count as a stitch. So the second to last space is going to be this one right here. Okay. And then in that second to last space, we're going to work 2 double crochets to end that row. And then to create that clean border on the side, in this last treble crochet, I'm going to work a half double crochet. And now I've decreased along the neckline another space. So now we'll go ahead and turn our work. There we go. And we're going to work another decrease row at the beginning. So we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip these 2 double crochets here. And in that next space, we're going to do a half double crochet. Then we'll chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet. And just keep doing that until you work your final half double crochet in the last double crochet. And there we are. Once you do that, you are then able to do your final decrease row with single crochets. So we'll chain 1, turn our work, and this is not the decrease side, so we're just going to start like we normally do with our established stitch pattern. So we're going to do a single crochet into that first half double crochet, then a single crochet into this next space. So we'll have 2 single crochets next to each other. Then we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and work a single crochet into that next chain space. And then keep doing that until we get to these last 2 spaces, which I'm already at. So, because remember, this chain 1 at the end that we did in the first part is not going to count as a stitch. So this half double crochet is the last stitch. So this is our second to last space right here. In that second to last space, we're going to do 2 single crochets. Then in that very last half double crochet, we're going to do a loose slip stitch to create that clean border again. All right, and then that's the last decrease row for the neckline shaping. And again, if you're on the back panel, that's going to be the last row for that shallow neck in the back. Or if you're on the front panel, you're going to then have a few more rows to go to create that longer strap for that deeper dip in the front. In either case, you're going to finish up that strap, and then you're going to work on whichever panel you need to work on. If you're done with both of them, you're ready for the next step, which is going to be seaming it together. All right, we are now done working up both of our panels. We've got my front one and my back one here. So what's great about this pattern is that it is pretty much reversible on either side. So you can decide which one you like best to be your right side and your wrong side. You know, if you're picky about like how you like it to look. But what you're going to do regardless of which one you choose is you're going to take the right sides of the back panel and the front panel, and you're going to place them to where they face each other. So in this case, you're going to see the wrong side on the outside here. Because when we seam these together, the seam is going to create a bit of a ridge regardless of your seaming method. And so you'll want that ridge to stay on the inside. So we want the outside parts to be, you know, inside for right now. So to do the seaming, all you're going to do is locate your corners where you started your armhole shaping here. So for me, it was right about, looks like it was here, because I can see that that's like that chain 3. So this was the last row where it was the before the armhole shaping. And I'm going to match that up with the last row before the armhole shaping here. So in this case, it's this single crochet row and this single crochet row. And then what you can do to help yourself is you can always grab some stitch markers and kind of clip them together, or you can just try to look to see, okay, so each one of these single crochet rows is supposed to match the single crochet row underneath it. So every time I'm seaming any of this together, I'm going to make sure that I'm lining those up. So that's just to kind of give you some guidance on how to keep things lined up and straight and everything like that. Okay, then to do the actual seaming, we're going to take a length of our yarn, find how much length the seam is going to be. And my general rule of thumb is I do 1, 2, and about half of the length, because whenever I seam, it's going to take up about 2.5 times as much yarn, and then clip it. Some people will do 3. Some people will just do the 2, and that's fine. You'll just use whatever method works. So starting from either end, so we could start here at the bottoms of our panels, or we could start at the underarm shaping area. It doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is take our needle, we're going to thread that through. And then matching up, we're going to find those corners here, and I'm just going to insert my needle through both panels. And then I'm going to pull through most of the yarn. And then what I'll do is I'll generally leave a little bit of a tail, so then that way I can weave that in later. But also, because the next step I'm going to do is kind of like a technique where you can secure it before you actually need to weave it in. So what we're going to do is actually wrap this yarn around the needle twice, and then insert it into this panel and this panel here. And then we're going to pull our yarn through. And that little bit of a twist in that tail around that yarn kind of creates this tiny little knot that's very, very unnoticeable. But as you can see, if I tighten that there, once I eventually keep seaming, that's not going to come apart. Okay. Once I do that, all I'm going to do is continue to do a whip stitch, which is one of my favorite seaming methods because it's just really, really fast and easy. We're just going to keep going through both panels, going the same direction, around. Oop, I hit my camera there. Oopsie. All right, there we go. Oopsie. I think I may have. Sorry, it's a little fiddly at first, as you can see. Kind of keeping those tails out of the way, but there we go. Now the thing is, because of how loose this mesh is, you don't want to pull too tight because as you can see, I just did that. It's going to kind of cinch the sides up too much. If you ever catch yourself doing that, just kind of pull it apart and kind of relax it back into place. Once you do that, you're then able to continue your whip stitching. And you just keep doing this until you have the entire side of your 2 panels seamed together. All right, I'm coming now to where I'm about to reach the underarm section. I'm just going to do my last couple of whip stitches here. And then that's my last single crochet row matched with my other last single crochet row before the underarm shaping. And there we go. We can now see here that I've got this nice evenly seamed set of panels. And there's no real like science or specificity to it. I just whip stitched what looked right to go together and it lines up just fine. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with it. So no need to be a perfectionist with this part. So just, seam it together how you need to. My final step for whenever I end a whip stitch or any kind of seaming is I always will go through this very last one twice. So then that way it just kind of secures it. And then I'll kind of go through the loop, very similar to how we created a loop down here. Let me show that again. So I've pulled my last one through a second time and it's created this kind of loop right here. So I'm going to insert my needle through that loop and then just pull that tight. And then what I'm able to do is later when I do my yarn weaving in, I'll just take these and just weave them into the end, or weave these ends in to hide them and then snip them with my scissors. Okay. So a lot of people wonder how you're supposed to weave in yarn ends. They're like, all sorts of tips and tricks and techniques. It oftentimes really depends on the yarn and the stitching. So for instance, this is a very kind of slippery yarn. And so it's going to take, a lot of zigzagging and moving in and out. But really, it's just wherever you can insert your needle through stitches. Just kind of find some loops here. And notice that I'm just kind of weaving them into random spots. But what the goal is that you want them to weave in multiple directions, because when the fabric moves, it's going to pull in all kinds of directions. So if you have it going in multiple directions, it doesn't matter which way it's being pulled. That yarn is just going to like pull with it, and it's going to move with it, and it's not going to slip out. So if I just wove in a single direction, if it pulls in that direction, it's just going to pull that yarn apart. So that's really the key when it comes to weaving in any kind of yarn ends, is just going in multiple directions. So even here, I'm kind of going almost in a circle, because then no matter which way it gets pulled, it's going to pull evenly on that yarn on all sides. Oop, it slipped out. Try that again. So I just continue working kind of like through that seam there, around there, around there, and then maybe even go this direction now, going opposite. And I've come through here, through there, weave in through here. What's great about these stitches is with any kind of like mesh tank is that you've got these big open spaces. And so that's really what's drawing the eye. The stitches themselves are not playing center stage in mesh. The spaces are really what draws people's eyes. So even if you have like a few yarn strands just kind of weaving in and out of it, it's not going to really be all that noticeable. All right, final step is you kind of find like a spot that's a little bit maybe thicker, and you're going to weave your end through there, maybe even back through it again, then back through it again to create kind of like a little like thick knotted area. And you just kind of pull it, give it a little stretch so that it kind of settles into its final form here. And then you're free to snip off that excess yarn. One final tug to kind of give it into that settled position, and looky there. You can see that little bit there, but if you kind of take a step back and look at the piece as a whole, it's now nice and disappeared. All right. So that's pretty much all there is to seaming the sides of the panels. And then when you get up here to the shoulder straps, you're going to do the exact same thing. So in this case, I've actually left a little bit of excess yarn on the ends of my shoulder straps. So it doesn't really matter which one you do that with, but you can take this excess yarn and use it to then join your shoulder straps together. When you join your shoulder straps, you're going to kind of try to match about stitch for stitch, since they're supposed to be the same width anyway. And then you'll just do the exact same thing that you did when you seam the sides. There we are. So finding those top shoulder straps, I'm going to join this corner to this corner here. Looks like that's about, well, actually, let me see. That's about there. Just like the side seaming, it's not an exact perfect science. Just make it match and look good how you like the way it looks. And then you just keep stitching the tops together. I recommend on the shoulders going through both loops of the stitch. So rather than just through one, you're going to go under both of this one and then both of this one. So then that way it's grabbing 4 strands of yarn and just giving it a little bit more of a secure hold than if you just do like 1 strand on one side and 1 strand on the other. And if you accidentally skip a stitch here and there, it's honestly not a big deal. This mesh pattern is very forgiving of these types of, little imperfections. And you just kind of go until everything kind of matches up. Same idea as before. When you reach the end, we're going to go through this corner here. Sorry, my tail is getting in my way. There we are. Oh, and I just pulled my yarn out. Oopsie. You can see I struggle with the same things, even though I've been doing this for 20 plus years. Like, if you're struggling with this part too, it's okay. We all have difficulty with this part. And those who don't, I'm always so I admire them so much. Like, I'm just like, oh, so impressed you can do this without having any kind of struggle. Good for you. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go through it twice. And then just like earlier before, I would eventually weave in my yarn ends. So what you're going to do is go ahead and repeat that exact same thing. Weave in all of your ends, and then I'll meet you back to talk about laundering and finishing. Once you've finished seaming up and weaving in all the yarn ends for your tank top, you can see that you've got it all nice here. You have the option of being able to do a single crochet border around openings, such as the armholes and the neck, or even one down here at the bottom if you want to polish it up. I'm personally happy with how it turned out without any of that, so I'm going to go ahead and do my laundering. Before laundering your finished piece, I always recommend reviewing your yarn label to see if there are any special instructions for washing and drying. I'm going ahead and doing a hand wash and lay flat to dry, not just because that's what my yarn label recommended, but also because it's my preferred method for my crocheted pieces in general. To do this, I fill a sink with water, usually about a lukewarm to slightly cool temperature, and then I use some wool wash for cleaning as well as for a good scent. And then I add a little bit of vinegar for 2 reasons. One is because vinegar is a natural deodorizer for a lot of fibers, but also a lot of tap water tends to be a little on the basic side, so adding a little bit of acidity from the vinegar helps to neutralize it so that it doesn't cause any damage to the fibers and helps prevent color leaching. I then submerge my piece fully into the water and let it soak for about 15 to 30 minutes. Once it's had time to soak, I go ahead and drain the sink, squeeze out as much water as I can, and then run it through a final spin cycle on my washing machine to get rid of any excess moisture that might still be hiding in that fiber. To lay it flat to dry, you can either set it on some towels, or you can set it on a foam board or blocking mat like I'm doing here. I found that this tank top didn't really need any aggressive blocking, so I went ahead and skipped pinning it into place. Instead, I shaped it to the measurements that I needed. And once I was happy with how it looked, I went ahead and left it to air dry overnight. Once your tank top is completely dry, it is now ready to wear all summer long. I want to take this moment to express my appreciation for you sticking around and watching this tutorial video. If you found it really helpful, please go ahead and hit that like button to let YouTube know that it was really good. And then also, if you can, go ahead and hit subscribe and ring that bell notification so you can keep up with all of the future projects that I've got planned. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.